Welcome to the Black Doctors Talk podcast. I am Dr. Christopher Holmes, host for this episode and member of the Black Doctoral Network. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Wendy Edmonds, who is a professor, researcher, speaker, consultant, and author. I'm so excited to have her here. Welcome, Dr. Edmonds.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, listen, I know you speak for a living, so I know this is going to be a great interview. So I'm excited about it. So let's get started. I want you to start by telling our viewers and listeners a little bit about your background. Where does it all begin for you?
Well, here's the thing. I actually started thinking about what I was going to do in high school, and it was being an actress. It was drama. And so that's what I did. I went and signed up for all of the drama classes, and my parents politely went to the school and took me out of each and every one of those and put me in business classes. So although they allowed me to speak and protest, they won that battle. And from there, I was recruited at 16 to work at NASA Goddard, which was really interesting. It opened up my world, my business world, my introduction into real technology. So that was an experience that I loved. Unfortunately, I didn't stay there, right? Because it wasn't what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to stay and figure out how these big machines work, like what made them work. That's what intrigued me. But I was in a culture where no one cared about this big machine they had just bought in the room. And this was the first word processor.
Wow.
That came out. Yeah, I know. It was back in the day.
No. We're not dating ourselves.
That's what really got me, though. That was what interested me. And so I didn't stay there. Kind of hopping around, I realized that I wanted to go to school early on. And I was a late bloomer, though, getting into college. And so for 31 years, every single semester, I took a course in order to complete my degree.
Okay, stop. Did you all hear that? I think somebody missed that. Somebody's out there complaining right now about school, and they're in their 5th and 6th year. Dr. Wendy M. Edmonds, I want you to say that one more time for all the people that need some encouragement.
Yes. Not every year, but every semester I took one class to continue always pursuing my degree. And it took me 31 years to do it. Yes. So where did it begin? That was my start.
Wow. My sister, I salute you.
Thank you. I tell you, so that's why I don't allow anyone to quit. You can take a break if you must, but I always encourage everyone to continue on. There is light at the end of the tunnel. You just got to get through the tunnel.
So what made you keep going back?
It was the combination of working at the same time and going to school. I wanted to get to the next step. Like the beauty of going to school and working at the same time is that you're in a work environment. And when you get to school, you're like, there's a theory for that. That's what you call it. I didn't know. That's what they did to me. And so that's what really made it really interesting to me was that, hey, they know a little something. All the books that I'm reading, they had read. So I wanted to hurry up and get across that edge so that I could get into something that maybe I'm experiencing, and they continue to give me the same information about what I'm experiencing, and I don't believe that is true.
Yeah.
So when do I get to the point of researching this? You've been in situations on your jobs where they tell you it's not your time. How many times have we heard that? It's not your time yet. What? And you are constantly developing yourself professionally. You're taking courses, you're attending conferences, and you know better, you do better, you step into the workspace better, and yet it's not enough.
Yeah.
So I pressed.
Now I see how we're going to get to this book. I see it now. I see it. So but let's not get there just yet. Let's kind of keep going a little bit further. So you're currently a professor.
Yes.
How would you describe your work as a professor?
Sort of between, like my roles really vacillate. I would say it's a combination of training and coaching.
Okay.
I teach graduate school, and I would say the difference is training is where you are helping them to transfer knowledge and skill set. And coaching is when you realize that they are coming and bringing something to the classroom. How do you enhance that for them? How do you help them move that along in their careers, in their life? I want to not only just give them skills to use in a workspace, but life skills.
Yeah.
And so that's how I see my role in the classroom. I absolutely enjoy it. And I want to always be able to provide an environment where they feel comfortable to share, because we have to really be able to discuss a lot of things that are happening right now and put some context around it.
Yeah. So when they leave you, what do you want your students to walk away with?
I want them to walk away with a toolbox.
Yeah.
And in that toolbox are things that they can use both professionally and personally. And on that toolbox, I want them to always know they can come home. There's something about the HBCU with that nurturing, that welcoming, that's the homecoming. And I want them to always feel comfortable to pick up the phone, hit me up on social media, call me, and let's try to work this out. Yeah. That's actually what I think I missed in my tour and my journey in going through school and my work experience. I learned a lot from making a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of mistakes. And I would say that those kind of nuggets are so valuable with networking. You know, hearing about it, you think, no, I don't have time. We must make time for that. We have to be involved, get involved, and support others, because it really is supporting you too.
Yeah,
you know,
most
you as
definitely.
an individual. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So now we're going to jump right into this thing because your work is intriguing to me. I have to hear you share this information with me to the point I had to look it up because I want to know more about it. So jumping right in, talk about followership. How would you explain this to your lay people? What is it?
So toxic followership is when a trusted leader manipulates the mindset of others. And they do so with an intention to get them to behave a certain way. The followers are so intrigued with this leader and their behaviors that they do become to the point where they mimic. They make decisions like them. They will behave like them, act like them, talk like them, associate with only those types of people. And in extreme cases, they will give their life for them.
Oh,
and we have seen this over and over again, but we don't talk about it. So when I always try to put the framework out there so that people understand who the players are in toxic followership. Who are these people? So a toxic leader is someone who defies any type of boundaries. If there are rules and values and missions of the organization, they are not going to abide by it. And everything that they do is in defiance. So they have different types of people who follow that behavior. There are those who are colluders, who support that leader and do so because there's something that they're going to get out of it. Whether it's a raise, whether it's a title, you know, regardless of what that looks like to them. Sometimes it's just association, you know, a little pat on the head, like, you know, look who's beside me. Well, that is enough for some people. And so they will go along with the bad leader. And then there are those who, out of fear, I need my job. I have my children at home. I'm the only one working. It's a pandemic. And for those reasons, they feel as though they have no choice.
Mm.
And so they will turn a blind eye to what the leader is doing for that self-preservation.
Oh, now I just have so many additional questions to ask you now. Oh my goodness. Okay, let me start with this question. With a leader that has that type of mentality to live life or carry out things outside of the boundaries or what's acceptable, how does that kind of person even get into leadership?
And there's different types of organizations that will accelerate someone to that level. Sometimes it's just the culture. Sometimes it's just the culture. And then sometimes people get like that because of the whole power dynamic. They may never have seen themselves as such, but then they have these subordinates that they're responsible for. But if this is how I can get them to do everything that I want them to do, it could be a lack of skills, lack of education. We have seen it across the board in so many ways. What you see in corporate America looks very different than what you see in a smaller organization, a family-owned organization. For example, you can have someone who is works for a family organization, is not a member of the family, and for that reason, they become the target.
Yeah.
So there's no cookie cutter answer, but we do see that the challenge that we have is, now that we see that this is going on, what do we do with that? Who really in the power dynamic has the authority? And I remind followers, it's us. We don't walk in CEOs in most cases. We don't walk in as pastors of the church in most cases. We don't walk in at the top level making those executive decisions. And yet we have an obligation to evaluate those leaders. We have an obligation to see, when you go into the work environment, you're kind of really hoping, right, that everyone is authentic.
Yeah.
We have teamwork. We need to know who our team players are. We want the end project to come out right. We also want our leaders to be authentic. And so we have an obligation to put that checklist together. Are they who they say they are? The decisions that they make, do they represent who they say they are? Do they represent the values of this organization, the mission of this organization? We can put the list together and look at that. Now, sometimes there are leaders who make bad decisions. They're not necessarily toxic. When you see the behavior that is consistent and it plays a role in the degradation of the team, of the organization, and it hits the bottom line, that's a challenge. That's a problem. And so we're looking at that now in the NFL. How do you go in every day, talk to people, deal with them, and then you write these emails? These emails, and yet it's not representative of who I am. That's not who I am. So it's not a mistake. It's a series of emails, which lets you know that's a habit.
Over years.
Yes. And how did that go on? And why didn't the recipient of the email say, don't you ever do that again? Don't send me that again. This is inappropriate. We have that obligation. Followers have a lot of power.
Yeah. It's wow, so relevant right now. Here we have this conversation. And my question, or not even a question, my statement was this: the leadership that invited that person to their organization connected with them at such a level, they understood who they were bringing in and likely agreed with their mindset and their belief system, which is why they were there.
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
That's exactly
So
right.
let me ask you this. You know, when you see me do this, I'm very intrigued now. So as a leader, you know, one of the things that many organizations look at is culture and climate, right?
Mhm.
In the organization, or they look at team morale.
Yes.
What is it that you need to look at or to identify to determine whether you may be the source of toxicity in your organization?
Mm. I always say, whenever there's anything going on, the man in the mirror, first check out the man in the mirror, because it's easy for us to say it's them, it's somebody else. But you really have to have that self-reflection to see what it is that you're doing, what it is that you are contributing to, because we have been in situations on our jobs where we may have contributed to something unwillingly or unknowingly.
Yeah.
And that is where it's not good. So that is a piece that I always say, start with yourself. When you realize that, I think that's the painful part, is that, oh my gosh, that was me.
Yeah.
So there, that happens with management. So there are people who will have a position, they get a promotion, and everything they hated about their boss, they have become.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's how easy it is. Sometimes policies will also help to corrupt an organization.
I'm going to stop talking to you because you're just you are messing me, and I mean just from things I read in the news today.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wrote something on Twitter about policy.
Yes,
Does policy create problems, or is it really solution driven?
right.
And that comes from leadership.
It does. How can you, here's a situation that is really unique. Everyone sitting around the table in the executive conference room is determining whether or not this particular person can have, let's say, just a promotion. And all of the accomplishments of the person that they're evaluating are outstanding, but the people making the decision, who have never done that very thing, say no. Are they even capable of evaluating the content before them, the individual whose lives? I mean, we don't talk about widgets. These are lives. This is their livelihood. These are jobs for them. Think about that. This is how easy it is for toxic behavior to show up. It shows up every time in a workplace.
And I don't think that followers, because they're not at the table sometimes,
right,
that they see or are able to hear how that leadership tries to minimize those that they lead.
right.
Because they're intimidated, they lack, as you said, lack capacity, lack education, lack skill. And they know there are people underneath them that could run circles around them 4 or 5 times.
Yes.
So when you are in that follower position, you sense this. You know, you don't want to then normalize this behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you'd let them know there are options.
There are options. There are, so the 3 R's is recognize, refute, and restore. So recognize the behavior. You gotta not make an excuse for it. That's what we often do. And it's real easy. Mr. So-and-so is having a bad day.
Yeah.
Well, you know that Cheryl is always like that. Yep, it's not 10 o'clock yet. She's not going to talk to nobody. Just don't go in there.
Yeah.
And then once word gets out, don't knock on Cheryl's door until it's after 10 o'clock because you don't know who's going to greet you on the other side.
Wow. Wow.
Those are things that we tend to make excuses for. But then it's 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and Cheryl is still acting the way she was at 8 o'clock when everybody says, don't even enter, do not enter. There is something wrong when you see that going on over and over and over again. When leaders begin to isolate members of teams for specific reasons, only known to them.
Right.
But you realize that it's a challenge. Recognize the behavior and call it what it is. Sometimes it's like whiplash, kind of snaps your neck like, did they say that? Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
And so we have to believe that. From there, refutation is the next stage. Don't take it, don't accept it. But then you have to build your strategy as to how you are going to navigate this process of approaching dealing with that bad behavior. That can be tricky. So you have to build allies. You have to understand policy. You have to follow policy. And then once that takes place, you make the decision within yourself, is this someplace that I'm going to hang out for a while, build my career? Because people can change. There can be interventions that take place that help and support making a change that would give you the warm and fuzzy about staying there. And then if not, you have to then decide, how do we make this change? Am I going to stay or am I going to leave? And what we do know from research is that for African American women who tend to be the caretakers in the home and or the head of the household, that making those decisions affect them more than others in the workplace. And so that's something that must be done. And then as that decision is made, the last part is restoration. So organizations, after dealing with the toxic leader, has to take place. Imagine what's going to happen with the NFL, who just keeps coming up in the news over and over again. I'm just saying that this is more than one time that they have been in the news for this type of leadership. Excuse me, making bad decisions. And then even for yourself, how do you restore yourself? Because a lot of times when you've been affected by toxic a leader, someone who's just totally morally bankrupt, unethical in every aspect, you feel bamboozled. Yeah. I joined this company. This is what they said. I mean, I remember working for an organization that had the best diversity page in the whole wide world. I just loved it. Oh my gosh. I just thought this was great, but there was no one that looked like me in executive management. No one that looked like me in the board of directors. Wow. And so what did that mean? Make sure this is how, as followers in any organization, people don't like the word followers. Everybody doesn't like it. Whatever you call it, when you are not a leader, we are held accountable, or we are held responsible for making sure that the companies are held accountable. Make sure that the organizations that we work for, we keep them honest. Yeah.
And I think what you're doing is you're changing this framework or mindset around the word follower, because it is a powerful word.
It is, and followers have power. So who's doing the work now? Think about it. There are, so everywhere I go, just trying to get a stove from Lowe's, and they clearly are having issues with people coming to work, having people answer the phone. Who's showing the muscle? I'll get vaccinated if I choose, but I'm not going to choose. Or I like working from home. Can you change your policy a bit?
Right.
So the followers are actually flexing some muscle here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's causing leadership to do things differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's forcing their hands. I think this whole pandemic has really changed so much about how we
Yes.
operate in the world, not just through our profession, but just how we live our daily lives. I mean, there may be times you can't even go and get. I'm a vegetarian, but you can't even go and get a 2-piece chicken from KFC because nobody's working.
It's true.
So I mean, it's a challenge. So you wrote this book, Intoxicating Followership. When people read this, and I'm encouraging people, I'm plugging it right now. Everybody needs this book, from schools to small businesses to big organizations. You need this book because these things are happening in your organizations. But when they read it, what do you want them to walk away with?
I want them to understand that the word follower is not bad, that toxic followership we encounter all the time. What the toxic followership book does is it puts a framework to just what you experience. Kind of like my experience in going to school and working when I said, oh my gosh, there's a theory for that. I didn't know that. I thought they just kind of made that up. I'm the first victim of that. What? So with the book, it is real talk about what happens with a bad leader and those that follow them. The word intoxicating came as a result of the interviewing the participants in the focus group. So as the only researcher that has ever gotten the survivors of the Jamestown massacre together and interviewed them in focus groups, what was intriguing is that they were putting missing pieces of their lives together as they were having conversations. You know, they were thinking about loved ones and certain situations that had occurred where they were, and they didn't have any information about their loved ones. They were able to help each other through and tell the rest of the story because they were in different places. So it was just a phenomenal experience having done that. But one of the participants said, you know what, Jim Jones, I just wanted to be so much like him that being around him was exhilarating. It was intoxicating. It just made your head spin, that you felt like you were a revolutionary. You were going to make a change. You were superhuman. You had this feeling. And then on the other side was the awful effect of the head spinning, like, oh my gosh, look at this man. Think about what he's saying. I'm feeling a little trapped, but I know it's not right what he's doing. And that is where the title of the book, Intoxicating Followership, because there's two sides of intoxicating that was felt through the emotion of being a member of in Jamestown.
I could go a little bit deeper with that, but I'm not, because that word, when you just listen to you say that, I just got this imagery in my mind of somebody that has consumed so much that when you see there's error or fault in a person, you're unable to function and find a way out because everything's so hazy.
Yes.
And you're believing what you initially experienced to be true, but what you're feeling is not the same. But you are intoxicated by the whole situation.
That's right.
You literally drunk the juice.
That's right.
Wow. Oh my, listen, this is good. Listen, I got to go back to this. So let's go a little bit further. I mean, I know that you are a professor and you are so committed to this work. Through the 31 years and through the time you've been at Bowie State, what has been your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge at Bowie, that's a very good question. I would say is understanding the symbiotic role of leadership and followership. So academia is very hierarchical, and that can present a challenge. And committees, this goes beyond committees. Getting the work done is empowering people. It really shouldn't matter where you fit in that structure.
Yeah.
Let's bring in the talent and get the work done. And that was my initial struggle in doing that. But as I navigated the campus, I became a free agent. Oh, you need some help? I can help. I'll help you do this. Oh, you need some help? Oh, let me help you over there. And so I just kind of found my way in doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and that says a lot to people. Be open to trying something new or stepping in places where you may not feel comfortable, but you'll grow when you say yes sometimes.
Yes. Yeah. Careers we have plans for, but I also say be flexible, like you just said.
So we talk about challenge. What is your biggest accomplishment in your life?
I would say my biggest accomplishment would be to have conducted the research, to really step out there, out of my comfort zone, overcome the fears and the barriers that I encountered in doing so. That was the biggest challenge, even to the point where my family and my husband was not really sure. You're going where? You're going to the West Coast to interview people you don't know? I mean, are you safe? What hotel? And it was, I couldn't give all of the information about everything, that I was going to do. And they just didn't feel that was safe or good. And only to get there, and the survivors were laughing and said, "Oh, our families told us the same thing about you."
Oh, that's funny. The fear of the unknown, but you all trusted each other for whatever reason. I think there was something they needed to get by meeting with you, and there's definitely something that you needed by meeting with them. It was a great meeting of not even the minds, the souls almost.
It really was. I didn't come back the same because once you have had an experience like that, it just changes you internally, spiritually. Everything about you has changed. What I will say, that if I had to do it all over again, I would do it, definitely. But I'm not sure I would just call it a focus group study, which is what my dissertation is. I would have called it a mini ethnography type of study. I really would have, because of the amount of time that I spent just really getting in touch with the survivors, building a trust with the survivors, because they shared their innermost stories and feelings about that whole situation that they encountered. And so one of the things that I want to make sure that I bring out as well for our listeners is that it is important for Black scholars to conduct research about the very issues that we are concerned about, that affect our communities. We cannot allow everybody else to come in and tell the story. We have lived it. There was over 75% of those that perished that day were African American. A third were children. This country has never really told the story. The story was about Jim Jones.
And not about the followers.
And not about the followers. And not about those African Americans who were exploited. It's human suffering regardless of what color they were, trust me. But the most affected by that tragedy of Americans on foreign soil in Guyana were African Americans.
Wow.
And so that's my most proud moment, that I was able to reach survivors have the conversation, hear the stories, and share, and come up with a model so that we can be warned about a predator who is a bad leader, what colluders look like, what conformers look like, what does that destruction look like. We have to be able to recognize, refute, and restore as part of every environment that we're in, whether it's at work or in personal relationships.
You know, Jesus, Lord have mercy. What I'm hearing you say that is also very profound, just as African Americans. We need to be very clear about what it is that we feel is a void in us that may likely cause us to connect to a toxic leader.
Yes.
To make us feel valuable and feel valid.
That's right.
I think that I see a movie. I think we need to call director DuVernay or Tyler Perry or somebody.
Let's do it.
Can we get you on Oprah and have you sit down on one of the Sunday shows that she does? Because this is very, very interesting. And I think more people need to hear this.
It is. Even to this day, there are people who don't know, one, that such a large amount of the congregation was African American, and those that perished that day. And they don't know that Jim Jones was white.
Yes.
Yeah. They don't know that. They don't understand, well, how in the world? And what really got me is that when I started off doing the study, conducting the research, I was like, never, my personality, not going to happen. I'm articulate. I'm protective of myself. Got it together. No way. And at the end, on the plane home, I realized it could have been me.
Wow.
I think that was the most scary moment that I realized it could have been me.
Wow.
And that's because of the deception. So remember, Jim Jones didn't show up acting the way we saw him in his last days.
Right.
He was the pastor. He was the community leader. He was the one that people trusted and loved. He had the rainbow family. All of those things. But underneath that, as you start peeling this stuff away, you start really seeing who Jim Jones was.
And you just talked about that earlier, that as followers, sometimes we don't tap into those toxic behaviors, but when we get the position, then those things somehow avail themselves because of what we now perceive to be power. But the power comes from the people below us. They give us the power. And that's how he was able to do that, because they empowered him.
He did.
I need a part 2 to the book, and you are definitely going to label it as an ethnography. All my people out there going through right now, when you go do an ethnography, you immerse yourself in the study. That's what she did. And how do you know? Because she said she came back and she was not the same. It changed her. Oh my goodness. This is so good. This is good. I hope you all are enjoying this, my viewers and my listeners. This is some good stuff. Let's keep going. We got to wrap up. So what's next for you? I mean, I know I said books and movies, but what do you see yourself going from here?
I would like to write a second part to that and really get into that, really just kind of scratch the surface. I'd really like to get into more of what that looks like now. We have so many situations that we are watching come alive on TV. And then we are in our own communities and we see this in our own relationships. And that's what I want to focus on with toxic followership. So it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. That's the thing that I need for everybody to understand. Just because you follow, the people who perished that day were not bad people. That was a slave camp, a concentration camp. And there are some people who say that you'll get different ranges of of responses when you say, how did you like Jamestown? What happened there? And they will say different things from, oh my gosh, I enjoyed it, to it was awful.
Wow.
But they held different positions. And so their experiences are different.
Yeah.
They were different races. Their experiences were different. And so when I look at that, I want to remind everyone, and this is going to probably be the lead of my next book. Don't ever say, don't drink the Kool-Aid. One, it was not Kool-Aid, it was Flavor Aid. Right? So that's not even version. That's not even true. But the danger of taking such a tragedy where over 75% were African American and a third were children, you diminish that and turn that saying into some form of colloquialism.
Yeah.
That is damaging to the families and survivors who are still alive. And so we have to remember that, yes, Black Lives Matter. Let's not use that term. It is absolutely offensive. It really diminishes, as though the people who succumbed to that toxic leader had no brain. They had no thought, had no heart. And that's not the people. We're talking generations. There is no family reunion when 9 and 11 members of your family perished.
Right.
So I want to be real about that. And in corporate America, is just blatant, where you hear the term about, hey, we got to get everybody to drink the Kool-Aid or not. That is a term that should not be a part of our vocabulary.
Wow. And I think what you just said is one thing many people don't even realize, that families were lost.
Yes.
Mothers, grandmothers, children.
Generations were wiped out.
Wow. And they look like us.
Yes.
Wow. And I also see a play. I see you going to Broadway with this. I can see this to be a great set of small roles of like families, somebody talking from each family about how it impacted them, but the majority of the cast being Black, representing that 75%.
Yes.
Wow. I'm just dropping little nuggets. I'm just putting into that. So that's what I say is going to happen. I know you're new to BDN. So what are you expecting to get from having relationships with colleagues here in the Black Doctoral Network?
I actually am so happy to be a part of BDN. And I think what I'd like most to do is to support those who are going through, especially in qualitative research. Qualitative research is very different, as we know, from quantitative, but that to get that element of trust in how we get that data to talk to us isn't something that happens in 2 months. You have to work that. And there's a brother, Dr. Lonnie Morris Jr., who has a qualitative research lab. And in that lab, he actually helps the students, and I support him in that. And that's how I see BDN being a part of supporting those who are conducting their research.
Yeah, and just listen to your story. I would encourage people to also see what you're saying, that there is something about being patient.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to rush through the work, because it could hopefully be and should be your life's work.
It is, yes.
And so take your time, get it right, and get all you need. I say just, take that fruit and just drain every drop of juice out of it.
Yes.
Because it will take you somewhere.
Yes.
And you are a living example of that.
Thank you.
This has just been a wonderful experience, not even time. It's just an experience meeting you. You have left me changed. And I hope that the viewers and listeners also are taking something away from this small amount of time that they are sitting, listening, and watching this. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for taking time out of your day. Dr. Edmonds, will you please tell our viewers and listeners where they can go to learn more about you and the work that you're doing and the work that you are going to do?
Yes, you can hit me up on LinkedIn and also Dr. Wendy M Edmonds.com.
She does speaking engagements, people. She consults. So if you need her, call her up. She's available, and you just got it right here in the flesh. This is the real deal, people. This is the real deal. Well, guys, thank you again for watching and joining us. Please stay connected to the Black Doctoral Network and connect with us on all of our social media channels. Thank you for joining us again today for the Black Doctors Talk podcast. We hope you will join us again next time. But for now, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to tell a friend. Until next time, be blessed, guys.